listening to LOA Recon with the Good Vibe coach Jeanette Ma, where we dissect the ins and outs and the art and science of conscious creation, all intended to amp up your manifesting game. Let's have some fun together. Let's talk today about whether or not your manifesting game would benefit from you having an emotional detox. You know, spiritual teachers are always telling us how important it is for us to feel our feelings, right? Because that's how we process them. That's how we make sure that emotions don't get stuck in our bodies and cause issues down the road for us physically. Because we know that resisting our feelings, it doesn't make them go away. It actually does the opposite. It guarantees that they'll stick around, since that's what resistance does. It makes whatever we're pushing against even bigger. So that's why we're always hearing how important it is for us to feel our feelings in order to allow them to process, which is true, I believe. Tom Stone talks about how emotions will complete themselves really quickly when we allow them to, right? When we let ourselves feel them. He says that's why happiness can seem so fleeting, because most of us don't resist feeling happy, and why sadness can seem so enduring, because a lot of people push against that. But it doesn't work for us to feel it in order to get rid of it. That's still a state of resistance. We have to truly be present and willing to feel those feelings in order to allow them to process. Okay, all that's true. But having said that, there are occasions when feeling the feelings doesn't actually wrap the party up. That's when we've got an addiction in place. Because we can have emotional addictions just like we have addictions to nicotine or caffeine or alcohol or chocolate or heroin. Our emotions have chemical components to them, just like our other substances do, and our body processes those chemicals the same way. Okay, this is my really crude layman's interpretation of how this all works. I'm sure many of you understand this better than I do, but those neural cell receptor sites, they learn to adjust to whatever we're regularly feeding them, right? So whatever they're managing on a regular basis, they learn to adjust to. And once they've managed a particular emotional chemical for a long time, they get used to that. And so the cell receptor sites adjust to handle that particular chemical cocktail. And when the cells don't get that particular chemical, they start calling for it. That's where cravings come from. And it only takes the body like 3 or 4 days to reset itself and get back to good. But it has to do that in the absence of receiving those chemicals, because if it keeps getting them, it doesn't really get a chance to change anything. That's what a detox is, going without long enough for your body cells to reset. That's how those physiological cravings stop. Sometimes we're also dealing with psychological habits that need to change. So it isn't always just, 3 or 4 days and then we're done. Like if someone's been smoking for 10 years, that habit of going out with coworkers for a smoke break a couple times a day, or if it's with caffeine, the habit of picking up that morning coffee, sometimes that plays in as well. So it isn't always just the physiological part that's hard to kick. It can be like the social habits that call for a reset as well. I'm talking about this subject because understanding this process helps you be the master of it, rather than continuing habits that might be sabotaging your vibrational alignment. It could be messing with your manifesting game if you've got an emotional addiction in place. Because if you're trying to line up with joy or appreciation, and you keep getting pulled down by anger or fear or worry, it can be a really frustrating process when it seems like your vibrational work isn't taking hold. Or sometimes, it can do a variety of things. If it's exceptionally hard for you to dig your way out of a negative vibration and you find yourself going back to it, it can make you want to throw in the towel on your vibrational alignment process. I'm talking about things like, say someone who has just been living paycheck to paycheck for so long and that's just like a continual frustration. Or maybe someone who worries about money constantly, even when everything's technically okay. Or sometimes it shows up when we're finding reasons to be critical with our lover for no good reason, or with our own bodies, right? When it's really doing well, all in all. If you've got vibrational habits in place that are keeping your alignment practices from taking hold, this is a good thing to clear up so that your manifesting work can be more effective. So let's talk about how to know whether you could benefit from an emotional detox. I think the answer to that is how do you know you need a detox from anything? The signs that tip me off, they might be different than you, but the ones that tip me off are when it starts to impact my life negatively, right? Or when I no longer feel in charge. Or when friends or someone around me speaks to it, that could be a sign too. Or when it keeps me from doing or feeling what I'd rather do or feel. A little example, I'm going to use the example of chocolate. I'm a big fan of chocolate. I eat it almost every day. And I've learned how to tell when I'm slipping from the, ooh, this is delicious mode and into the, I gotta have it territory, right? Like when chocolate cravings start at 11 a.m. or if it's hard for me to focus on anything else until I have some, that's a sign. For me personally, that's a sign. I'm not saying it is for you. Or when one or two pieces aren't satisfying and I find myself reaching for one more, and then one more, and then one more, that's a sign. I've learned myself well enough to know where the line is and how to get back on the good side of it. So chocolate really truly is a choice and a pleasure and not a habit or a requirement, okay? It's the same with our emotions. In fact, I wrote a blog post on this a while ago with 4 signs that might indicate you could be addicted to a particular emotion or vibrational frequency. The first one being, you can't shake it even when you want to. Like despite your best efforts to refocus, you keep coming back to that particular energetic state that you don't like. Or if your feeling state seems beyond your control, you might be addicted. The second one, your manifesting efforts aren't getting any traction. That's another sign you might be addicted. If your creation processes aren't taking hold, it might be that you've got a dominant vibe overpowering those efforts. You'll get a lot more bang for your buck when you're not operating with a misaligned vibrational tendency. The third one I wrote about is when you've got a long list of reasons to justify feeling bad, right? Or you create flimsy excuses to perpetuate those feelings. Boy, did I do that one recently. Maybe I'll mention that in a second here. When I say recently, I mean a couple years ago. Fourth one, you have looping negative experiences, right? If it's just one unwanted episode after another, it might be that the law of attraction has entrained you into an emotional addiction. Remember that scene from What the Bleep? The girl at the dance, the woe is me victim, the drink gets spilled on her dress. She just kept having bad things happen over and over. Patterns like that could be a sign that we're operating with an addiction in place. So once upon a time, here's my example. I hired a relationship coach, Lisa Hayes, to help improve a relationship with my boyfriend. And pretty early on, she recognized that I was conjuring up reasons to be mad at him, like little reasons. Not very good reasons. In fact, it was resentment that I was flowing. Like if he trimmed the lawn too short, or if he came home before I was done working, I'd told him I got to have limited distractions while I'm working with a client. Or if he started vacuuming when I was sitting on the floor, pretty much anything he did, I could find a reason to be mad about it. So Lisa asked me to spot that happening in the beginning stages before I was in the midst of it and not really in choice anymore, and to turn it around to something better while I could in those early stages. And I did that. I learned to notice how I felt as those emotions were starting to form inside. And you know what? Sometimes those emotions would start because of something he was doing, or sometimes they'd just start happening and then I'd look for a reason to blame him for it. Okay, and when that happened, when I noticed, it takes self-awareness to do this, but with a little practice you can spot it. And when I noticed it, that's when I'd remind myself, okay, this is just my resentment habit again. I'm not actually doing that anymore. Just like a smoker who's quitting reminds themselves, I don't smoke anymore. I'm a non-smoker. And then I'd do something like take a deep breath, because oxygen can really help with the detox, and I'd let it out. And I'd remind myself what I'd rather be feeling. Peace, acceptance, appreciation. And maybe I'd look for a thought that didn't feed resentment, but would feed one of those other emotions. I might say something to myself like, you know what, this is just you making mountains out of molehills again. You're not doing that anymore. Relaxing feels better. Or I might say something like, you know what, it's not that bad. You can let it go. Or it's not worth getting upset about. I don't want to be mad anymore. Or the question that would work for me as well is, what would I rather feel? That would pull the plug on it. And it worked. It worked really well. For a minute, anyway. Then my brother became a big thorn in my side. I couldn't believe what he was doing to my parents, to his ex-wife, not really even to me, just other people. And there I was all mad about it. And I recognized that old familiar resentment, just finding a new way to get its fix. That's when it was pretty clear I was dealing with a physiological component in my body to this emotion, when I started finding new targets to feel it. So it was the same process, just making a commitment not to feed it anymore and to choose something else instead. Lisa's actually a big fan of choosing pleasure as a replacement over whatever emotion we're releasing, since the brain responds really well to pleasure chemicals. And you could do that in a variety of ways, like a piece of chocolate, petting your cat, maybe something even as simple as, taking your finger and tracing the lines in your hand. Some people find that really pleasureful. But the point being, it isn't just asking yourself to stop doing this. It's to replace that old habitual feeling with a new one. Just like when you're quitting smoking, it's sometimes easier if instead of just saying, I'm not lighting any more cigarettes, it can help to have some gum on hand or a piece of candy that you choose instead. So you're interrupting the pattern and replacing it with something that serves you better. It's the same with an emotional detox. You don't just say, don't worry anymore. You give yourself something else to engage. Maybe peace, maybe pleasure, maybe thankfulness. And you really only have to do this long enough to give your cells a chance to clear out. And that gives you a better chance to choose better feelings. So your manifesting practices are more effective. Okay, it's worth knowing that, as with any detox, it is possible that things might feel worse before they feel better. So don't be discouraged if that happens. It means it's working. You're doing it right. You just got to ride it out. So if you get any withdrawal symptoms like irritability or anxiety, some people even get the shakes, believe it or not. I have experienced that once from an emotional detox. Some people, it's not unusual for headaches or just a low energy or some restlessness. Again, it's not a sign that it's not working. It's the opposite sign. So just ride it out. But you can help manage any withdrawal symptoms by, I would suggest, cutting yourself some slack, like being really easy on yourself, lots of sleeping if you can, and drinking, sweating, just like with regular old detoxes. I would also suggest laying low. Like, don't do this maybe on your first week at the new job. And also, with the media feeding us a lot of inflammatory stories about what's happening in the world lately, it can be really easy to create a negative loop of outrage or anger or fear. You guys, don't fall for it. Be clear about what you want to feel and choose for yourself. Don't let someone else feed you into a habit of an emotion that doesn't serve you, because this stuff can be contagious, or rather attractive, right? It'll draw more to you that matches it. So it's worth clearing out whatever emotions you're not a fan of. And also, I would add, let's not judge whatever emotions we're feeling. There's nothing wrong with a little drama or a little excitement. It's only when it's taking over your life or your whole emotional landscape that you might want to lay off a little or a lot. If you have questions or want support in this process, Lisa Hayes is the pro at this. You will find her online at lisamhayes.com. That's Hayes. So here's to freeing up your vibrational alignment work by releasing any attachment you might have to negative emotions that are holding up your manifesting party. Thanks for listening. And if you enjoyed this or any other episodes, please consider sharing it with a friend or leaving a review or dropping me a note on Facebook to say so. Thanks, everyone. Big love.